Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. It is time to take some questions, and I got three very similar ones over Twitter, starting with Patricia, who asks, "We scandal, dead on life support, warm, still hot." Similarly, we also got from Ken, who asks about the We scandal. Is it likely as bad as it? How bad is it likely, and how much are Pierre Poilievre and Charlie Angus weaponizing it? Why are the Liberals running so hard in the other direction? And also from Lee, who asks, why are the Conservatives politicking the way they are? Why have they adopted an insult until they're gone attitude? Why are they hell-bent on keeping the country stuck on we and vilifying Trudeau? And what should they be doing instead? So I figured I'd kind of talk about those kind of all in the same breath because it's very interrelated. So the first part of it, where are we at with the whole we imbroglio? I think it's really on life support at this point. We've pretty much found out everything we're going to find out. The opposition has extracted blood. We've had a finance minister resign. We charities, Canadian operations have essentially folded. Not their international ones, but their Canadian ones. So that's a fair amount of blood that's come out of this particular affair, and it has damaged the Prime Minister as well. What is left that they're kind of fighting for in committee? The one committee has been looking to get the documents around just what exactly the speaking fees that were paid to members of the Prime Minister's family. I think that is going to be a tough sell. The Liberals have been filibustering this, and I think this is at the point where I'm not sure how much that information is actually relevant and how much of it is just basically trying to stir up drama at this point. The other committee has been trying to get the unredacted versions of documents that the government turned over. That one's got a little more legitimacy because there was a committee order that the documents were supposed to be non-redacted and then had the Commons Law Clerk do any necessary redactions before they turned over to the committee. Those documents arrived at the Law Clerk pre-redacted, so that is a bit more of a legitimate issue. I don't think there's going to be too many other revelations in those documents. However, I do think the Liberals should actually abide by the committee order and turn over the unredacted documents to the law clerk. But at this point, I think that's largely on life support. In terms of why they're still playing this particular game, because basically, they got to embarrass the government, and that's a hard thing to let go of. It's also kind of like being a sore winner in a certain respect as well, in that they want to keep trying to score points and build narratives around it, even though they've largely accomplished everything there is to accomplish in what the outcomes were. And like I said, that they've extracted a fairly hefty price from the government and from we as well around that. What should they be doing instead? Well, it is the opposition's job to hold the government to account. We can quibble on ways in which they're doing it. I think it becomes less and less constructive after a certain amount of time to keep going at it in a particular way. I don't know that I want to necessarily draw any particular hard lines around this, but it's also there is a danger for the opposition in that eventually people get tired of it. The returns become increasingly diminishing, and that's I think where they are starting to get to. But again, I mean, we'll see how the government behaves. Liberals are currently filibustering on those two committees to avoid having to restart the whole cycle again. I do think, as I was saying, that the Liberals and the Finance Committee should at least let them get the proper documents turned over in order to respect the committee order, and so the government is not found in contempt of Parliament for doing that. For not, obeying the committee order in terms of turning over the unredacted documents. But again, this is starting to reach the point of diminishing returns for the opposition when it comes to what they hope to find out of all of this. And our other question this week comes from Steve, who asks, why are the Liberals so slow in making policy? When I asked him to clarify, he said in particular testing and tracing. And he also says, does the Conservative focus on debt play to any other audience than ideologues or pundits? So on the first part, I'm not sure that the Liberals are necessarily slow in developing policy so much as they are in implementing it. I think that's probably the bigger challenge for them these days. When it comes to something like testing and tracing, that is largely a provincial issue. They have offered particular supports in terms of lab capacity or contact tracers when provinces ask for them. So I don't know that that's necessarily the issue. The bigger issue, I think, is on the provincial side. Ontario in particular pissed away the summer and not increasing lab capacity or contact tracing like they should have, because this is provincial responsibility. So I'm having a hard time faulting the federal government for that, because they have basically gone fairly above and beyond what they're required to in order to provide additional supports to provinces. As for the second portion of that question, the focus on debt and deficit, part of that, yes, is pundit driven. My unifying theory of Canadian punditry has become that it is 1995, and it will always be 1995 in the minds of these pundits. Recall that we had a major debt crisis in the country in the mid-90s, which Jean Chrétien, Paul Martin, and the Liberal government at the time went on a massive, basically budget cut spree, and got that back under control. So in a big portion of the Canadian imagination, we are still in a situation where there is always this debt crisis looming. It's not looming, even with the huge increases in spending for the pandemic. We are nowhere near debt crisis levels like we were in the mid-90s. And that message is just not really being communicated very well. As for who this audience plays to, part of that is the populist rhetoric that the Conservatives employ. It's not about, being good financial stewards like they try to brand themselves, but it's about this kind of notion that that equates federal budgets to a household budget. And this notion that, as a country, we can't live beyond our means. Today's spending means tomorrow's taxes, all this kind of stuff. None of this is necessarily actually true. Federal deficits and debts can be sustainable, particularly if you've got a high enough growth rate, which, we are in a period of particular economic contraction right now, but that is because there's a global pandemic. And some of the items that the government has been trying to leverage some of that deficit spending on, for things like childcare, do have a proportional economic return that outweighs the investments that go into it. So those are things that we kind of need to keep in mind. But yes, I think this is kind of that audience that they're playing to. If you listen to their rhetoric about household budgets and family credit cards and so on, that's who they're trying to play this audience to. Trying to set up the notion that they're better economic stewards because they think of things in household terms, but that's not true at all for how federal budgets work, even provincial ones for that matter. more so federally though, because provinces can't print their own currencies. But these are things that that they're trying to make distinctions on, and I think somewhat falsely. And that's yeah, I think that's who they're playing to. And that is everything for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. That's at journo_Dale on Twitter. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.